The episode begins with Prince Jonathan and a group of mercenaries from Endor attempting an ambush, while the tribe of Zebulun begins abandoning the Israelites near a narrow mountain canal. Jonathan is betrayed by the mercenaries, as King Achish is already aware of the ambush. He signals his army, who are waiting to slaughter the tribe of Zebulun. A flaming arrow is fired, and the entire tribe is mercilessly massacred. Nearby, Princess Mychal and Merab witness the horror. Though terrified, they continue on their journey to find their father. Jonathan fights off the Philistine soldiers one by one, but is eventually overpowered and forced to his knees. The next morning, at the Israelite encampment, soldiers wait hopelessly. Goliath appears as usual, taunting them and demanding a champion to face him. This time, he throws down the severed heads of the assassins and begins mocking them again. As King Achish speaks to Jonathan, we learn that the 5th Philistine army, Ekron, has already joined the alliance. The final army is at the back for Israelites' camp with more giants. Achish tells a story from 500 years ago, recalling how Moses led the Hebrew slaves out of Egypt to this land. He claims the Philistines were once kings and nobles who crossed the seas to rule, while the Hebrews were born to serve. Achish warns Jonathan that at sunrise, he will unleash his full force. He gives Jonathan a choice: return to Saul and surrender, or send a champion, and live the rest of their days in slavery. As he leaves, Achish warns Jonathan that the next time they meet, his arrow will pierce Jonathan's heart.
My arrow will pierce your heart.
Back in Gath, Queen Ahinoam realizes her daughters are missing and sets out to find Saul to help ease his torment.
Left. To go where?
Down!
Get out of sight.
When Mychal finally reaches her father, she begins to read aloud from Moses' scriptures, and Saul starts to come out of his tormented coma.
Is it really you?
Meanwhile, back at the palace, Ahinoam fears the end of Saul's legacy and Israel's kingdom. She prepares herself for death, believing it's only a matter of time before the Philistines storm the palace. Suddenly, Eshbaal storms in. Elsewhere, David is traveling to the battlefield, leading a donkey loaded with food for his brothers. When he arrives, the first thing he sees is the Israelite army doing nothing, sitting in hopeless silence. He sees Goliath and remembers the lion he once killed. David boldly declares that if no one will fight Goliath, he will. Everyone laughs, thinking he's joking. Abner arrives and orders David to go to King Saul and play music for him. But when David is brought before Saul, he surprises everyone by declaring that he wants to fight the giant. Though the king tries to dismiss him as just a boy, David speaks with such confidence and conviction that Saul agrees, naming him Israel's champion and giving him his own armor. Back in Gath, Eshbaal declares that he is the true hope of Israel. He convinces his mother to crown him the new king before the Philistine army arrives. The people believe the war is already lost. As expected, no one believes in David. Many begin to think Saul has lost his mind. As David puts on the king's armor, Mychal gives him a scroll with one of Joshua's writings she remembered. She encourages him to be brave and asks him to come back after slaying the giant. She kisses him, giving him strength. David removes the armor, saying he needs to be himself, and admits that he is terrified. Abner sees Jonathan return to camp and informs him that Saul has named David as champion. Meanwhile, Adriel attempts to stir a rebellion, but Abner and Saul confront and stop him. Jonathan follows David to the stream and tries to talk him out of it. But after seeing David's unshakable faith in God, he relents. He realizes that Samuel had indeed visited David's house. David is the anointed one. Jonathan decides to believe in both David and God's plan. David steps onto the battlefield with courage, proclaiming that God will fight for Israel. The Philistines are insulted to see a boy sent to face their giant. Goliath mocks David, but David declares, God is with Israel. He runs straight at Goliath, dodging his massive attacks. The scene flashes back to episode 1, David's earlier attempt to fight the giant. Goliath strikes him down again. The Philistines cheer, and the Israelites lose hope. Suddenly, Samuel appears on the mountaintop, surrounded by the smoke of sacrifice. David struggles to stand but sees the bloody pebble from his earlier vision. He rises as all eyes turn to him. David swings his sling. Goliath's spear misses. The giant falters, confused. His hand shakes. Blood begins to drip from his forehead. Everyone watches in shock. Goliath collapses. King Saul immediately commands his army to advance. David, without hesitation, draws Goliath's own sword and decapitates him. Jonathan charges forward, and the army follows. The episode ends with Israel's army marching to face the full Philistine force, just as Eshbal's coronation ceremony takes place in Gath.